Everyone,
Good evening.
I think we're going to go ahead and start.
What is he, the timekeeper?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you to the candidates for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. So I am Lynn Cohen with the Fair Access Committee, which is a committee of the town of Poolesville. And the town and Fair Access, as well as the Poolesville Area Chamber of Commerce, are sponsoring this forum. I really thank the Chamber for stepping up. Tom Kettler's here, the Chamber President. He'll give a couple remarks about the Chamber. He's also going to be our timer, so I'll go over the timing process here after he gets finished speaking. Jim will give a couple comments about the town, introduce the town, and then we'll off and run. So, Tom?
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to co-sponsor tonight's forum. We had an county executive forum a couple of weeks ago. I do want to let people know, as you may or may not know, there's 17 at-large candidates this year in the election. The primaries would be in June. Lincoln and I discussed it. We're having the first tranche tonight, and we thank our 7 candidates who came out tonight. We're going to have another one on May the 27th, so mark your calendar for that to pick up the remaining candidates who are interested in coming out. The Chamber of Commerce has been around since 1979. We represent over 162, just on somebody else review. Our list is right here of all our chamber members. We represent the Western Montgomery County, everywhere from Poolesville to Barnesville to Boyds to Dickerson. I'm going to take the opportunity to pass out to each of our 7 candidates the Poolesville Chamber of Commerce Community Business Directory. That's a free party gift. Study up on the town. You got one. Oh, you got one already. Excellent.
All right.
Mark that in private. But again, we are a non-partisan organization. We're 501c6, so we're a business organization, of course, represent all the businesses in town, and we appreciate the opportunity to help out with tonight's forum. And we have a strong history of sponsoring and co-sponsoring forums like this. Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks.
And I think you guys you're giving a gift certificate to whichever of these candidates has visited more of the local businesses than anybody else. That's good.
We like people.
You got to prove it, but if you did, no. Jim?
Hi, guys. Everybody, thank you for being here tonight. Town of Poolesville welcomes all of you. As always, some of you have been up here very frequently. Some of you have been up here a little less frequently. But regardless, tonight is your night to tell us all about yourself and how you're going to work with us in the Up-County, Western County, Poolesville region. So we're super happy that you all are here. As always, we have an engaged populace, which is amazing. And those of you that are not campaign workers, that are residents, and the thousands that are watching us on the internet right now, we want to thank all of you guys for being here tonight, especially Councilmember Balcom. I'm going to recognize our fellow elected here. Shout out to our Poolesville resident, Will Milam, for coming in and doing his thing. So, Will, did I say it? No, Will runs for sheriff. He's a great guy. All right, guys, that's all I got from me. Thanks again. Good luck tonight, and we look forward to hearing having some good conversations.
But as usual, Jim forgot to mention that the other 4 commissioners are here as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you. Please. It's there.
In the back.
Oh, there.
I just had eye surgery.
Yeah, there you go. That explains it.
My guys, all 4 of y'all. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. So this forum tonight is, we love to have the politicians here. We want to see the candidates. We want to learn from them. But it's really about you. That's why we're trying to design this, so you can learn something. I'm hoping we will learn something tonight from each of these candidates about their positions and what they think about Montgomery County's future. I also want to point out that everybody was placed up here randomly. I put names in a hat, and so I pulled them out. And the first one was Goldberg on the right, and I went across that way. So I did not place anybody strategically. Try to be very fair about that. We'll also make sure that we do not start with the same person to answer the question. Every time we have a question, it'll first be that person. Next time it'll be Lori Ann answering, and so forth. So all of you will have a chance to be first and last at some points. So here's the background on how it will work, and Tom will be the keeper of time. All candidates have an initial 1.5 minutes to discuss why I am the best candidate to help guide our county, and more particularly the Western County, which is where you are tonight. And Tom will time you on that. Then I will ask each of you a series of questions. Each one of them you have 2 minutes to answer. So that gives you, I hope, a little more time than we had last time, because on the county executive debate, we only had a minute and a half. And some people told us, and we got some feedback saying that wasn't enough. I do want to point out that I don't want you to hesitate to suggest you have differences with other candidates. If you do, and you specifically mention that candidate and their position, I will give 30 seconds for rebuttal. And that's, I think, sometimes more useful to the populace than it is of just having a straight answer with that. So if you do have a disagreement, don't be afraid to say it. And then at the end of that period of questioning, there will be a minute and a half for you to finalize and just kind of say, this is why I'm here tonight, and this is why I want to see you vote for me. So here we go with the questions, and
Just to let people know, we have a 30-second timer, 10-second timer, and then the big stop. That one, they look at it. So anyway.
so Scott, we'll start with you to give your why I'm the best candidate comments.
Do I have to push this?
Nope, it's on.
Terrific. Link said I'm on the right, but we're Democrats, so depending upon your ideology and perspective, I could be the furthest to the left. So just want to point that out. So why do I think I'm the right candidate for Poolesville? That's a great question. I think knowing the area is incredibly important. So knowing that if you've been to the Bunny Breakfast or the Fair Access Breakfast or anything hosted by the Poolesville Grill Team, understanding that there is a non-zero chance that you might have met what you're eating. And I think that's important when you know this part of the county and it's got a rich agricultural economy. So I'm a dad. I'm obviously a Democrat. I'm an attorney. I'm a small business owner, and I'm a substitute teacher. So in this economic time of anxiety, I think it's very good to have someone who started a business with a laptop and an idea and grew it to have 20 employees. I think in an era where there's only 2 council members who are attorneys and one is leaving, I think having at least 2 out of 11 attorneys is a good mix. And when my son didn't have a substitute teacher one day, I stepped up to serve as a sub. So we're spending half of our money on our schools, and we certainly want our kids to be educated, and I think having someone in the classroom is really, really important.
Lorianne?
So, good evening, everyone. Councilmember at Large Lorianne Sales, the only incumbent in a crowded race of 17. I'm running for re-election because I believe there's still more work to do. I ran on a SMART agenda to strengthen our community's schools, make more housing affordable, advance local food production in our ag reserve, revitalize our economy, and tackle climate change. I've made progress in each of those areas, but as much progress as we have made, Western Maryland has still been left behind. Poolesville still waiting on a senior center and a place for our kids to go after school. A school that was supposed to be built is still unfinished, and we still have not been able to leverage the largest agricultural reserve in the nation. And so I want to ensure that this up-county gem does not get forgotten. And so I am an up-county resident as well. And as a former municipal member, I have close ties to this part of our county and want to ensure that it remains at the forefront as we move forward. So thank you. Look forward to the questions this evening.
Right.
Good evening, everybody. It is great to be back in Poolesville and see so many familiar faces. For those who do not know me, my name is Jim McNulty, and I have the honor of serving on the Gaithersburg City Council. I'm in my 5th year, and I'm running for Montgomery County at large because I believe government should make it easier to live, work, and play. And unfortunately, too many of the decisions that are happening at the county level are making it more difficult and more expensive. As a city council member, I already have a track record of success, and I've experience in areas like zoning and economic development and budgeting. In Gaithersburg, we've actually maintained the lowest municipal tax rate of any of the large cities in Maryland while having zero debt but still offering great city services. And that's the approach that I want to bring to the county. But long before I was in public service, Poolesville has been a really important part of my life. And it's not just, the big events like Springfest and Poolesville Day, but it's, pizza at Cugini's, it's Hanukkah parties at Joey and Neil's house, it's New Year's Eve celebrations with my friends Jane and Eric, and it's attending the hunt races with dozens of friends. This community has always made me feel welcome, but it's not always just the fun times. I have been an ally and an advocate. I was here on a very freezing cold day to mark the 5th anniversary of the closing of White's Ferry. And I continue to show up for Poolesville, and I look forward to your questions, and thank you for having me.
Carla?
Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. I love coming to Poolesville. I have a very distinct memory when I first ran for school board in 2018 at Poolesville Day in the parade, walking down the parade route, shaking hands, and the message I heard from all of you was consistent. Rebuild Poolesville High School. We need a new high school. And I was proud to support the funding that finally brought a new high school to this community, and everybody should take a drive to check out that beautiful building. So you may know me as a school board member, but you may not know that I also work for county government under the Ike Leggett administration as a community liaison, helping everyday people get connected with government services. I now work at Montgomery College as Director of Community Engagement, connecting people with education and training so they can get better jobs. On a personal note, my family fled Guatemala for political persecution. Montgomery County created the conditions for my family to thrive. And that really changed how I see public service. And I have devoted my career to giving back to this community that has given me so much. I am the right candidate for Poolesville because I care for quality of life issues, like all of you. Good jobs, good schools, transportation, parks. And I will fight to make sure that we have that for all of our residents. Montgomery County needs fresh leadership and also experienced leadership that's ready to tackle our challenges on day one. Thank you.
Edmana?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Fatma Tabari. I am not a Poolesville person, but I have enjoyed the times that I've been up here. The learnings that I've done and the research I've done about your community is lovely. I was born in Sierra Leone, West Africa. I moved here at the age of 11 to the United States. And this is what I can tell you. I grew up in a household of working families. And when I see this community, it brings back great memories. I grew up in South Florida. If anyone knows anything about Florida, we have a place called Pahokee where we used to go farming in Pahokee. My dad would wake us up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go on a Saturday. So I understand the need that we have for the Ag Reserve. I know people who have farms on the Ag Reserve, so I understand the need. I'm a special education and immigration law attorney. And my experiences in that field has taught me that our children, especially our children with special needs, our adults with special needs, need resources and services. And I want to bring that lens to the county council. As an immigration law attorney who has worked both at the county council and at the county executive's office, understands that the services that everyone needs in this county needs to be equitable, regardless of your zip code and regardless of the economy. I want to be that county council member who will bring that lens to the county and represent you to the best of my ability. You will have an open door. I will have an open door policy to where you can come in and talk to me about anything. Thank you.
Steve?
All right, thank you. I'm Steve Solomon. Thank you all for having us here today. Jim and Link, I appreciate you putting this together. I've lived in this county my whole life. I'm the son of immigrants who came here looking for the American dream, who worked for the government their whole lives and taught me about hard work and trying to do what you love in life. Growing up, I worked as a carpenter. I mowed lawns. I worked in a ticket box office. My dream was to work in radio. I got to do that for 20 years. I was a radio talk show host and producer. I'm now a podcaster part-time and a full-time candidate. I'm running because I think we can do a few things a little better in this county. I love it here. I'm going to live here my whole life. And I think we can do a little better on some things like economic development, infrastructure projects that have been sitting for years, have not been paid for and funded. So I want to do better in that. Over the last 10 years or so, I've gotten much more involved in county community, civic, political and nonprofits. I volunteer at several different places. I know a lot of people here. You've seen me doing things. I want to be the person who walks the walk, not just talks the talk. So I look forward to discussing the issues with you here tonight. Thank you.
Mark?
So I've worked with folks in the Poolesville community since I was a city council member in Tacoma Park and worked with the Maryland Municipal League and members. And I did that 19 years. And I served 12 years as a council member in Montgomery County. And I worked with this community on pretty much every issue that you've ever dealt with, not just with the city of Poolesville, but also with the ag reserve and the farmers around here. I've been a huge champion of maintaining the ag reserve. I have pushed back against efforts to erode the ag reserve. I've supported this community's efforts to grow and development within the limits that you have, knowing that you've got limits up here, and they challenge everybody. I'm a big believer in being present, which is why I think you all know me. A lot of the people in this room know me because you've seen me up here. You see me eating over at the restaurants up here. I like this place. I really believe that it's important that somebody have a long-term experience, and I think I probably have more experience than anybody in terms of working with this community. I've been a school teacher in Montgomery County. I taught for 17 years here. I know the issues that are facing our schools. They are of deep meaning to me. I'm really committed to education. I'm a believer that, this next generation, if they're not educated and don't have the opportunities they need, they will not wind up serving us well. And I think it's important that we make the investments in education that we have to make. I look forward to the questions, and like I said, always happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all for your opening statements. So this is the honorary Bernie Mem question. Bernie has been very focused, and rightly so, on the way our local roads out here are maintained. We have rustic roads, as you know, although some are just rural. They're not rustic, but they are all smaller roads. They're not main roads. And as we've dealt into this and looked into why they're not maintained as well, at least that's our position, we found a number of things, including the fact that our local Department of Transportation hub out here does not have as much equipment as I think they need. We've also found that there really isn't a dedicated budget for rural roads maintenance. So do you believe our rustic roads need better maintenance and attention? And what would you do to ensure these roads are maintained adequately? And we'll start with Lori Ann on this question.
So we have a transportation budget that takes care of our roads. I was here last week with Councilmember Balcom and visited one of our farms with her for an Earth Day activity. And we both had to find an alternative route to leave the farm because of the rural roads on the farm. Regardless of, the county's composition, all of our attractors, our residents, the visitors we want to attract here need to be able to get around. Not everyone has a pickup truck. I certainly don't. And so we want to make sure that the ag reserve remains accessible for everyone to enjoy it. And that means ensuring that paved roads become a reality and a part of a realistic budget. So supportive of ensuring that we have essential access to these roads. It shouldn't be optional just because it's a rural community, unless you want the unpaved gravel dirt roads. So,
Jim?
Thank you for the question. I mean, the Ag Reserve is supposed to be our crown jewel, right? And it's not just about preserving green space and beautiful vistas, it's about preserving the way of life. And in order to make sure that the way of life of working farms and the communities out here is make sure that the infrastructure is being maintained. So it can be a rural road, and we can want to make sure that it maintains some of that bucolic appeal, but it still has to be travelable. Whether you're on a tractor or a vehicle or a bicycle or whatever, we still need to be able to get by. And unfortunately, I think we've taken our focus off the main things that government is supposed to do, like making sure that we can get around, making sure that we have jobs. We've been focused on other things, and I think we need to get back to the basics of government, making sure that we're growing our economy so that we're not constantly having to raise our taxes to do these very important things that we have to do. You know, I was a Little League coach up in Boyd's at UMAC, and, you know, you'd have to wind back in there to get to the ball field, and, you know, I've driven on many of these roads, and, you know, when you start getting the brush coming in, and, you know, you can damage vehicles, as you just heard, you know, sometimes it could even be impassable. So I think if we truly want to support the way of life in the Ag Reserve and making sure that what we intended this to be, and making sure that we can provide for the next generation of farmers, we need to make sure that we're putting the infrastructure in place, making sure that our budgets are reflecting those values, and making sure that we're choosing the most important projects. And that starts with looking at our budget from day one, and not just making sure that we're doing everything the way that we always do, but making difficult decisions and making intentional decisions about where we're putting our money. The Up County and the Western County has felt like they've been neglected for a long time, and I think the condition of the rustic roads is very reflective of that reality.
Carla?
Since the Chamber of Commerce is a co-sponsor today, I think that one thing that I want to emphasize is that rustic roads bring people to visit because they're beautiful and they're part of the character that makes this community so unique. So it's important that we maintain them. I know my husband, an avid biker, spends a lot of time on rustic roads all over Montgomery County. He'll come to Poolesville, he'll bike, he'll stop at the businesses and spend money and grow the economy here in Poolesville. So it's an economic development imperative to make sure that we maintain our rustic roads as a part, as a way to support our small businesses as well. I think it's important, out of sight, out of mind, so it's important that we continue to work with the Fair Access Committee to make sure that funding is put in the budget consistently so that we're taking care of the roads adequately. We want to maintain the character of the roads, but also maintain them on a regular schedule. So I think they're a great asset to this community, and I think we should fund them and support them. Thank you.
Mara?
Yes, I do believe there should be a dedicated budget to uphold and make sure the roads are done well. So I'm one of those people who believe in equity, right? So equity is not always just about equality, right? So just because we have funding for paved roads or other roads, and we then say, well, we have to do the same for rustic roads now. If we have not been maintaining the rustic roads prior, and we need more to make them accessible and safe and to remain beautiful as they are, then we do that. So I believe in making sure that we have equitable representation and resources being provided to every community member in Montgomery County, regardless of your zip code. I've lived in communities where we have rustic roads, and they're great. I grew up in a small village, and we had to take rustic roads to go to the hospital because we didn't have a hospital in our town. I have been in these spaces, and I understand how important it is to make sure that regardless of what it looks like or people think it's supposed to look like, they're beautiful, they serve a purpose, and they should be as safe as any other road in this county. And so, yes, I believe in providing the funding to maintain these roads, not just for the safety, but for the beauty that they are and the access to the Ag Reserve and other areas of this part of the county. And I will support that.
Keith?
So our county, of course, has many modes of transit, bus, bike, walk, but most of us, how many people drove here tonight? I did. I know most people did. And it seems you have to either be a transit guy or a car guy in this county, or one or the other, right? I never understood that, because depending where you are and where you have to go, everything is an option. And I do drive most places because it's obviously the most feasible to get here. I don't know what it would have taken to get here by bus from Silver Spring. It would take a while. So not many people do that. One of the things I ask people when I meet them is what are some of your issues? And it's potholes, it's sidewalks, it's streets, the constituent service things that all of us probably see. And that's important to me. Infrastructure and getting those things right, it has to be done. before any development is done and things like that. And I've been involved with my civic association with small projects like getting our Lamberton Drive. I see my neighbor Chris here from my civic association, getting that done through the county. I've learned from Director Conklin that a traffic light costs about $180,000 to install and how it's done and stuff like that. So some of these things are complicated, getting a stop sign put in, things like that. So I'm an advocate for larger shared use sidewalks as well for the people who do bike and for protected bike lanes as well. But roads are our main way of transit in this county. We all seem to know it, and I certainly support keeping them structurally sound as a council member.
Mark?
So when I first came onto the council a long time ago with Ike Leggett, they were putting together a budget for transportation and roads. We had about 100-year cycle of rotating through to get things fixed, and that was inherited from Duncan's time as executive, not because Duncan was neglecting things, but because the limited amount of capital in the budget strains us. So today, Montgomery County's capital budget is $280 million. It was $300 million 20 years ago. It was $340 million when I was on the council. You cannot buy, for the same amount of money you had 20 years ago, what you bought 20 years ago. And our problem has been our inability to expand the budget, to put more money into it. And it's not going to come out of magic. It's a real thing. You have to pay for things. Sometimes taxes are necessary to pay for things. But we have fallen behind and never really caught up. And so I would continue, and I've been pushing, and hopefully we'll talk about it later, to change our tax system so we can put more money in, not out of residents, but out of the way they do it in Virginia and the way they do it in Washington, D.C. We have a tax system in this county that relies overly much on residents. It's the wrong way to fund things to the extent that we're doing it, and we're not going to be able to build the infrastructure we need any other way. We haven't built a single lane of real bus rapid transit. That thing has been in the master plans for 12 years. It's part of our master plan for moving people around, and we can't even build the basic lanes to build this project. So we have serious problems. That's why I take the issue of taxes and I take structure of the county government as a serious thing. We cannot move forward if we don't have the resources to do it. And the idea that we're expected to build what we built 20 years ago with the same amount of money, or actually less than what we had at my peak, it's not a good thing.
Scott?
Montgomery County is a pretty well-run place, but I think we can all agree, and why we spent our Monday evening here is because maybe it can be run a little bit better. And resources and roads and infrastructure and everything else is just a balance of the finite tax dollars that we have. And the Fair Access Committee does a great job of advocating for Poolesville. So if elected to the council, and that's one of the priorities, I think that's something we should take very seriously. And certainly, improve the roads to get around. And just off the top of my head, I think it's a pretty big safety issue, right? So we get a lot of snow, we get a lot of flooding. If ambulances in an emergency can't get somewhere, I think it's really important that our infrastructure works so that, people can access the really life-saving services that they might need.
Thank you. The next question, the first person to respond will be Jim. For decades, the county has operated an incinerator in the Western County that has released toxic gases and produced tons of toxic waste. There have been plans to close the incinerator for quite a while, and a program to do so is now pending. How do you view this situation? What should be done regarding the incinerator?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, it's a very complex and controversial issue, something that's been kind of hanging over the heads of the Montgomery County Council and the executive for more than 8 years. I think there's three particular aspects that that need to be addressed. Number one is the safety of our residents. If we've seen that because we thought that this was going to be decommissioned, that we have not been investing in keeping this incinerator up. So we've created a situation where it is unsafe. So number one, the safety of our residents has to be paramount. So we have to start there. And if we cannot be run at all safely, then it's needed to be shut down immediately. But then there are dominoes that are going to fall, and I talk a lot about what are the unintended consequences. So if this is going to be shut down because of safety issues, then A, we need to think about how are we going to, pick up the energy generation that this plant has been generating, because we're already bringing 40% of our energy in from out of state. So we're already looking at, if we shut this down, it's going to increase our energy costs. Nobody's talking about, well, what is going to be the plan to fill that gap? Third is, what are we going to do with our trash? And the budget the $8 billion budget that has been proposed includes trucking all of the trash from Durwood out of state, which is causing other challenges. The residents in Durwood and Rockville are very concerned about all of the truck traffic and the environmental costs, whatever. It raises the question, why are we not looking at the existing rail infrastructure that's already built in at the Durwood transfer station and at Dickerson? So these are all things that have to be addressed. And I think, going back at promises that have been made, we're finding ourselves where we're rushing through a plan, and I don't think the plan is right. But we've got, we have to protect people's health and safety first, so I think that's where we have to start.
Okay, Carla?
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but you all know this issue better than anyone else, and so safety of our neighbors is the most important priority. And so the incinerator needs to close. We just have to do it responsibly, and we need a long-term plan to what we're going to do with our waste. I think that we must really take a closer look about how much waste we are producing. How can we get rid of all the single-use plastics that are rampant in our county? I mean, just you go to the movie theater and they give you things that you can't recycle. All the takeout that we produce nowadays, just 20 minutes at your table and then in the trash. So to add something different to this conversation, we have to get serious about composting, about eliminating single-use plastics, so that we can be a community that has less waste. Because if that waste has to go somewhere, either gets burned or it gets shipped to a different community where it's going to create bigger problems. So let's focus on creating less waste so that we have less problems to deal with in the long term. I know it's a long-term solution. It involves behavior change, but we have to start somewhere while we come up with more sustainable. We do have to deal with our trash, and I think that's a very important problem. I would love to be on the council to deal with this very important problem. But just to be additive, I think let's focus also on reducing our waste. Thank you.
Admana, and just a reminder, we one of the part of this question was, what do we do with the incinerator? So, specifically. Go ahead.
Okay. Short answer, it should be shut down. And in light of that, we should also be very mindful of where and how we then shift the waste, right? Shifting it to other communities, especially low-income, marginalized communities, will not exactly serve the right purpose. If it's not good for health-wise for Dickerson, then it's really not good for other communities if you're going to have it. So I would say we do it responsibly. I do believe that there are things we can do as far as how we put out our trash. There are communities and young people I know, not necessarily in the U.S., who use some of these plastics and things that we just toss out, and they repurpose a lot of these, and they become actual usable things. And I think, thinking outside of the box of how we control the waste, how we control recycling, and how we make sure that we protect everyone's health, because let's be honest, it's not just about it being there and the community doesn't want it. It's that there's a health concern. There are health concerns for everyone who is around it. There are health concerns on how you deal with it, and you have to be honest and face that. And if you come from that base, then you will be able to figure out what you do with those waste and how you control the amount of waste that you actually have in this county of over 1 million people. And I think we can think outside the box. We can look at different places to have the waste taken care of, and look up different ways to deal with the waste on top of that. And I love thinking outside the box. There are a whole bunch of ideas I have, and maybe one day, if you get me on the council, I can bring that up.
Steve?
So I think many of us put our little bins out on the driveway once a week and then don't really know what happens to them, and I'm certainly one of those people who does that. I remember I worked in an office building in Rockville, and we had the regular trash can and we had the blue bin, and I used to work in the afternoon, so I would see people come in and clean those. They'd put them all in the same bag. And I was like, oh, we're not recycling these, are we? So my civic duty jumped in, and I asked my boss, shouldn't we be recycling these? We're supposed to be. So we actually got that fixed. So I personally got our recycling done at 1801 Rockville Pike on the 4th floor for that time. So there's my duty there. But yeah, I think where will we take our trash if we close this place? Are we going to ship out more? Is there some train leaving the state with my garbage on it? I guess there is, and that's not a solution right there. And allowing the plant to be lax in their standards, waiting till 2031 is not an option either. Certainly, I don't know anyone personally who works there, but I would think they want to work in safe conditions as long as that place is open, as would everyone who works in this county. So that's important to me. After that, I don't have an exact answer, as none of us do. But the people who say, just close the plant, well, what do we do with our trash, and how will we phase that out? So that's a complex issue that we'll have to deal with.
So we've been trying to work on that complex issue, but no one is, I don't know how to say this. Look, first of all, the owner has a responsibility to maintain that facility. Nobody is not maintaining the facility because we plan on closing it down, because they haven't even made that decision yet. Their failure to maintain it is a failure of their responsibility and nobody else's. The trash is going to go somewhere. And we believe that we can get ourselves down to 50 to 40% that has to go to a landfill, which is we do about 30% to a landfill right now, plus a little bit more for construction debris. So we think that when we put in full-blown recycling and recovery, we can recover enough. Construction debris is about 20%, and food's about 20%. We're going to mandatory recycling for food for everybody. So we think that it is totally feasible to get this down to 40% of things that have to go to landfill. Things go to a landfill today. The toxic ash, which is about equivalent to 30% of the weight of what is burned, winds up next to a landfill next to a black community. The reason it's going by truck is because this was out for a bid. People offered rail and they offered truck. Truck happened to be the most cost-effective way of dealing with this. We didn't start with saying truck. The bidders had the opportunity of offering us both. So we believe that we need is a transition of about 1 to 2 years of basically shutting down most of what the facility does, repurposing it with new equipment that actually recovers much more of the waste stream, and then at the end of the day, we'd only be sending out by truck what the little bit of the trash that remains, not the bulk of the trash. And so there's a path forward. It is going to take time. I will say that, COVID interfered with 4 years of my administration. I had 3 years of same services budgets and COVID. It was very hard to get anything done in that.
Scott?
So our contract for the resource recovery facility, which is the technical name of the incinerator, as I'm sure everyone here knows, is into 2031. And I think the county executive did a lot of the homework here to close it down well before 2031 and exit the contract before it expires. I think there's a couple outstanding questions. There's a couple details that need to be worked out, but it's a pretty good starting point to end things well before that contract expires. I would add to this, during COVID, we all said we're all in this together, right? And this is one of those we're all in this together because you guys are dealing with some poisons that are going into the air. And I think if you were to ask the rest of the Montgomery County residents, we wouldn't want that. So if there's a plan, and I think there should be a real priority effort to say, hey guys, we need to use less trash and throw away less things. We need to recycle more. We need to compost more. And we just need to just to throw away less things. I think our county would get behind that. And I think with some real aggressive leadership, that will be in the 1 to 2 years to reduce our trash level so that we can close this thing down.
Lorianne?
Thank you. The request for proposal process is pretty antiquated, especially for a facility of this size. We've had quite a bit of a runway to put out a proposal to have innovative businesses compete for solutions to rid us of this pollution in the western part of the county. We want to be partners in this effort. We wanted to, I think all of us ran on the idea of shutting down the incinerator, not extending the contract, and it has taken much longer than any of us anticipated. Do I want to ship our trash to a low-income neighborhood who's probably not as engaged and won't be able to show up at a community meeting to advocate in opposition of even more pollution when we know that communities of color are already burdened with asthma and other health disparities? No. So we need to use our resources to explore the most innovative ideas, and we should be searching far and wide. We travel outside of the United States to recruit for businesses to come to Montgomery County, and we should be recruiting businesses with the best innovative solutions to pilot their solutions right here in Montgomery County to rid us of this incinerator once and for all.
Thank you. Bob Motto, you be the first one on this question. As you might expect, you're going to get a question on White's Ferry, even though, to the county's credit, they have $1.5 million they put in a kitty with the state for a $3 million pot that would go to help the two parties hopefully resolve the issue and decide how to use that money to deal with the issues they have in that White's Ferry situation. But unfortunately, so far, we still don't see a solution. So my question to all of you is, if nothing happens by July 1st, 2026, which was when that pot of money is supposed to be doled up between the two parties and an agreement is supposed to be reached, what do we do about White's Ferry? And I just want to make sure you know this, and all of you do because you've been out here, but this town actually is a different kind of economy, not just because it's agricultural, because most of the businesses out here are small or family-owned. So having no traffic or less traffic by far than we used to is a pretty serious thing. So Fatmata?
So it's unfortunate that we are here. And of course, it's hurting the community financially, economically. If we cannot come to a solution, now we have in Virginia, right, we have Governor Spanberger, right? And to my understanding, she has always been a proponent and a supporter of opening the ferry. And as a council member, I would love to be able to work with our county executive, whoever that may be, and other elected officials to hopefully work with the governor of Virginia, who is in support of opening the ferry, to try to work out and broker a deal between the two parties. Because the reality is they're privately owned. The county and the state can offer, but they have to accept the offer. And if they're refusing to accept the offer, then what we can rely on, hopefully, are relationships that were already built with these owners. And the only way I could have thought about it is if we have both leaders of the state of Maryland and the state of Virginia, who hopefully have some kind of relationship with these owners to broker a deal and get to a point to where we can have something that serves both parties, right? Because maybe I don't want to say they don't understand, but having a plan presented to them that says you are hurting a community that enjoys not just financially, but having people come through their town does not bode well for you. And who knows? I can't say I have an answer because, again, It's not government run, but I do think that the county and the state, both here and in Virginia, can at least have longer conversations.
Steve?
All right, so I knew this question was coming, Link, before I came here. So I knew a little about
If I
this.
didn't ask the question, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Shocking. So I went on YouTube and watched a video about the history of the White's Ferry argument. I was like, and I knew a lot of it, but I did not know everything. I'm like, really? Man, what a government and private screw up this has been for 5.5 years now. And I will hopefully be elected 7 days before this deadline, so I can't do anything about it right away. So don't blame me. I remember as a kid when we went on the Beltway and went to Virginia, and I was like, is there other ways to get here? Like, oh yeah, there's White's Ferry and Point of Rocks. I'm like, that's it? And this was 40-something years ago, and now we have one of those places closed, and I'm sure the 162 businesses that Tom has on that list want this open. It's not Mark's fault. It's not Montgomery County's fault. It's not Loudoun County's fault. As he said with the incinerator, when you deal with private businesses, they have to be holding themselves to standards, and when these two families can't, and they've done well for themselves and other businesses and whatnot, but when they can't come to a simple agreement, they're willing to give this land away to get this done, and we still can't do it. So it's been a 5.5-year problem. We don't want to impact businesses. Heck, look what the Purple Line has done to impact businesses. We've had to find ways to supplement them with money so they don't close. And we've done a great job of that in the county. I think that's a great thing when we do something like that. But I'd go and happily mediate as well as I could as a council member with limited power to try to solve this issue that helps both sides, right? This is something that will help both sides and get this done.
Mark?
So I think if it was up to Montgomery County, we probably could have gotten the deal done. Our problem is that the state of Virginia will not, or at least Loudoun County, will not consider eminent domain, which is what they should have done. And now that the approval's expired for a ferry, so now they'd have to go back and they have to get approval again to use the landing spot as a ferry. And I do think we're still going to have to use eminent domain. I thought we were close. I think everybody thought we were close. We agreed upon money. Then one party thought the other party was getting too much money. And there we are back again. And I would up the ante. I mean, I think this is too important to say it's whatever we've put in and then that's it. If it took a little bit more to get this deal done, I'd put more in to get the deal done. But somehow, either Virginia's got to resolve the issues with Libby, which aren't just the ferry site, but some of her other property, so that they can make a deal, or they've got to be willing to exercise eminent domain. And I do think that talking to the governor, the new governor and his staff, is something we're doing and reaching out to, because we do think that if the governor were to nudge them, this might get done. But the Loudoun County Council seems to have an allergy. I know there were some people there who were interested in eminent domain, but they could not get a majority of people who believe, just philosophically, they don't believe government should take the property. And it's just, that's, to me, it's the holdup we've got right now.
Scott?
So as a substitute teacher, I just want you all to remember that I'm a substitute teacher. There are 3 lessons here.
Is that because you can't be a full-time teacher? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be biased.
It's going to take a lot more to get off the Goldberg Christmas card. So the lessons here are Montgomery County has a reputation as being not great for business, but I think this is the counter lesson to that. Our county government did a lot to try and get this done, and devoted a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources to do it. So I think we need to start getting that out. Like, yeah, we're going to support businesses. Lesson number 2 is government has limits. There's only so much that we can do. I think we've done a heck of a lot. Maybe we can do a little bit more, but government is not a magical solution to everything. And lesson number 3 is we do need to think outside the box of other options, right? So this is both a transportation and an economic development problem. What other solutions can we work with Fair Access in Poolesville and the local areas to essentially replace what this ferry was providing? So this Christmas will be its closed 6 years. We obviously are willing to devote, and the state, a lot of money to do it. Is it time to, while we keep fighting to to get this ferry open, can we also think about what else we can be doing to help the people and businesses?
Thank you. Rayanne?
Yeah, excuse me. I am a bit more relentless. I would have hoped that we would have continued the conversations with Loudoun County and the stakeholders. These are business owners, Mr. Kuhn, and Libby's family. I just think we dropped the ball on bringing them to the table and continuing to have discussions. We had a similar issue with White Flint Mall, trying to get a gate around White Flint Mall, but also making sure that the neighboring communities could navigate the mall and still get to school and other areas. And I ended up calling Mr. Lerner, and after a few phone calls, he was able to make amends and make a route for residents to actually navigate that area. So I just think as, elected officials, we are the arbiters of how to proceed with good governance and bring, people to the table to build consensus. And this is too big of an economic center of this community. We've just lost a lot of business, a lot of time, and we just need to pursue this relentlessly and continue to bring them to the table. And the shot clock is ticking. So I am all in, as I was when I was first elected, to bring us back to the table and continue to do that until we reach a solution that includes our governors and includes the chair of the Loudoun County Board, Phyllis Randall, and any other stakeholders involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
So I'm a firm believer that transportation policy is economic policy. And, we are a regional economy, we are a regional transportation network. Obviously, it's a very difficult situation. I do applaud the county executive and the county government for all of the efforts that they have done in trying to get this solved, offering, the money to help broker a deal. And I agree with some of my colleagues up here. I think we're going to need to get creative. We're going to need to build relationships, and whether it's through the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, they have a transportation board, whether we're able to work through our partnerships that way. It's going to have to be about building relationships. And so much about governing is about being able to build those relationships. Even, my short time on the city council, I've done a lot of work, building those relationships with the commissioners here in Poolesville, with our county council, with municipalities across the county, to be able to, when we get into these kinds of situations, to have those open channels to be able to discuss that. I am optimistic that with the new governor, with Governor Spanberger over across the river, that perhaps cooler heads can prevail. And if we can't make this particular solution, I think Scott's right, then we need to start thinking about what are other alternatives.
Say that again.
We'll talk. But we need to look at what other solutions. Is it another crossing at another spot nearby, whether it's another ferry or a small bridge or whatever it needs to be. But if we keep banging our heads against the wall and expecting something different to happen, that's on us, right? So if we're going to be in an impasse, let's figure out what is that next solution. But I do think that with new people in place, new conversations can happen, and hopefully we can get somewhere.
Carla?
Thank you. First and foremost, this is very important for this community, as has been stated, for our businesses, for transportation. It is super complicated with 2 states, private property owners. But what I have found from serving on the Board of Education, when we come across issues that seem insurmountable, you have to keep at it. You have to bring people together. You have to build relationships. And what's oftentimes seems like it's never going to happen, oftentimes we find solutions. We have to stay, like I said, we have to bring people together, get some creative ideas on the table, continue to work across with the new governor in Loudoun County. People get reelected and there's new leadership. So I think we have to be relentless in our advocacy. If more money is needed, within reason, of course, because I think that they're also waiting for that money pot to increase to make the best profit that they can make. This is important for this community, and I think we have to continue to, like I said, build those relationships and stay on it. I'm confident that eventually we will come to a solution that will be a benefit to this community.
Thank you. Steve, you'll be answering this question first. At our breakfast this year, we unveiled a plaque essentially thanking farmers and praising agriculture and how important it is to maintaining the ag reserve. Without a viable economic underpinning for the ag reserve, and that means farming, it wouldn't exist. Marilyn Balcom has been fond of saying that the ag reserve policies have been around for 45 years plus now, or 40 years plus, and there are some of them that just aren't working anymore to support the ag reserve. So we do need to look at these policies again, and we need to have an understanding from you about what you think are the key issues that are facing the ag reserve in terms of maintaining its viability in the future, and what will you do to help address those issues? So, Steve?
Okay, so you wouldn't know it as a city boy that I am, but my wife's family are all farmers. They run chicken and cow farms in Alabama, and we go many summers, and they put me to work. And let me tell you, it's hard work. And I found a lot of respect for that work after doing it for like 2 days with my uncles and cousins. And like, oh, that's where my chicken comes from. They sell 1 million chickens a year. They grow and kill 1 million chickens a year to Tyson. So I'm like, I probably have eaten a chicken that my uncle has raised. So I certainly respect that field there. I live near the Wheaton Regional Park where the horses are. I love horses, and coming up here, I'm like, oh, look, horses, this is great. So it's obviously a huge part of our industry in Up County. It's a tremendous amount of land, percentage-wise, of the county. I'm sure a lot of people are like, why don't we develop this more? We're getting crowded in Lower County. But I think that's why a lot of people live here, because they like the way that their ag reserve is built now. And I certainly would want to keep things the way people would like them, the majority of people. So that's important to me. Farming is the backbone of this country. That's how many of us eat. So having that dichotomy here in Montgomery County of you go to Silver Spring and Poolesville in the same day, and you see a completely different style of life, and I'd work hard to keep it that way.
Mark?
So there are a couple of things that I think that are important. First, I do want to say we did look at an alternative crossing for the Potomac. It did not pan out, but we did look for it. One thing is just making sure that we don't allow much encroachment. I was one of the people who wanted some limits on how much solar can be put in the ag reserve, because I didn't want to get in the situation where we wind up taking away much of the farmland. I do think that letting farmers put in larger than what was originally allowed makes some sense, but I think letting people pave over or panel over everything, I think would have been a mistake. I do think that one thing we can encourage is photovoltaics, agrivoltaics, where the panels are above crops, because it is actually something that's happening now, and I've seen examples of it, and it's possible to marry those two things together, but you have to be careful, and you can't expect a farmer to grow just anything. There are only some things that'll work under there. Grapes are one of them. So that's something I think of interest. I think that we've got to, at the federal level, the biggest damage to farmers right now has been the destruction of international markets. You can't sell to people that you used to sell to, because American foreign policy has cut off the markets. And I think you've got to have of foreign policy. If you say you're going to put America first, that ought to include America's farmers first. And you shouldn't engage in things that actually undermine the ability of farmers to sell their crops international. And there are other people who have stepped into the void created by the lack of unwillingness to buy American crops because of the tariffs that I think's created the problem. I think in general, the county has to continue to support. We've put money into it. Obviously, we've got a pretty, I think, a robust team that supports the Ag Reserve and supports the farmers. I think we have to continue to listen to them. And when they talk to us about things in need, we've got to take those needs seriously.
So my view of the Ag Reserve is very similar to Central Park. It is this preserved amenity that we inherited that is also our responsibility to give it to next generations. Aside from my wife telling me to take the garbage out, the limited garbage, right, so we can close the incinerator, I'm a pro-housing advocate, and this is one of the uniqueness of at-large members. When I say, hey, we need more housing supply in the county, in the lower part of the county, they say, why don't we build it in the Ag Reserve? And my answer is no. There's opportunities for density and other intricacies, but like we need to preserve the Ag Reserve. And over the summer, I got the chance to learn how to milk a goat at Bluffing Goat Farms. And just to segue from photovoltaics, right? So Mikey over there wants to put solar panels on his land. And I think we need to tread carefully when we look at amending or altering the easements that make up the Ag Reserve. But I think there are opportunities in an intelligent, thoughtful, reasonable way to say, well, let's look at, what we've been doing for 40 or 45 years, and let's see what we can change. And we can always start small, and we can always reverse things. That's how I feel.
Gloria?
You said three things, right? Was that the?
Basically, the point is, what are the policies do you think are needed to preserve the Ag Reserve for the future? Do we need to make changes, and what are those changes?
Okay, so I think to preserve the Ag Reserve, we have to have sustainability. We have to sustain our soil conservation district, we have to sustain our economy, and we have to have sustainable access to health care. We know that rural health care has long been a problem, and as chair of the Health and Human Services, it was one of the first priorities that we wanted to tackle, and investing in a mobile health clinic was so important. There's not a lot of access to health care for this community. So number one, want to make sure our residents have access to health care. And then we want to ensure we can support our farmers so they can continue to grow not just our economy, but also their livelihood. And that depends on healthy, rich soil. And then last but not least, economic development. I serve on the Economic Development Committee. The Agricultural Reserve used to be on the Economic Development Committee in the Planning, Housing, and Parks. It's moved away and has become more about land use. And in a place that prides itself on preservation, we have to think more about how we're going to leverage the Agricultural Reserve to spur agritourism, to spur agribusinesses, and do it in a more innovative and sustainable way. We are very supportive of the new arts district. I know that there's, not everyone is on the same page about it, but arts and culture is going to bring people here, and then they are going to enjoy the delicious food that comes here. And so we have to make sure that we're ready for the influx of traffic that's going to come, and that we do it in a sustainable way to make sure people enjoy themselves while they're here and spend lots of money.
Jim?
One of the biggest challenges that is facing our agricultural community is rising costs. Trump tariffs are already killing us. Then we add to it the rising gas prices, and it's not just, us thinking about commuting to and from work, but, all of the machinery that relies on fuel, those prices have been jacked up. So they're already being squeezed there. Then we get, proposals for increased property taxes, increased income taxes, and it's becoming way too expensive to maintain their way of life. So I really do worry about that next generation of farmers who want to continue a business that's been in their family for generations. So I think we need to really understand what's going on, and because they're small businesses, right? We need to support all of our small businesses, but you look at all the economic headwinds that we're facing. We need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm a big proponent of expanding the mission of our Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, which is currently charged with trying to bring new business into Montgomery County. But I think that there's a role that they can play in help supporting businesses that are already here. In Columbus, Ohio, they added a small business hub to their financial empowerment center, and the county has MCEDC as well as a small business department, which only has 6 people for the entire county. And I think that there's a way to consolidate some of this so that people can have a one-stop shop, so they can find ways to connect with capital, help them with business strategy, attract workers, etc. So I think if we can partner with our business, with our chambers, and really be part of that solution, I think that will help identify opportunities so that they can grow into the future.
Carla?
Like some of my colleagues, half my family are farmers in Guatemala, and I grew up in a rural community not far from Pahokee in Florida. I also spent some time in central Pennsylvania, where I have seen some of the most fertile agricultural land turn into suburban sprawl. So that's what we don't want here in Montgomery County, and that's one of the reasons why we created the Ag Reserve many years ago. Again, to be additive, I would like for us to focus on local food production. It's a very important issue in today's environment in terms of where we're getting our food and preserving the land that's going to produce more local food. As a school board member, I know that we want to produce better quality food for our students, and we need to work harder to get local food production into our schools. Yes, it is expensive, but feeding our kids good quality food is important. So again, to be additive, that's something that I would like to focus on as a new council member, is how can we support our farmers? So let's see who wants to go into this. You can't make people do it, but support them so that we can take advantage of this local land and turn it into food for our local farmers markets and for our kids in our schools. Thank you.
Armana?
Excuse me. Thank you. So, as I said earlier, I've been an advocate, and in my advocacy work, I've tried very hard to not speak for people. Whoever I'm advocating for, whatever community I'm advocating for, my role and my job is to uplift their voices, uplift them. And so I've made it a habit of having conversations with the people who will be impacted directly. So one of the first things I think I will need to do is have a conversation with the farmers. As I said earlier, my father did farming. He wanted us to do farming, and we used to go to Pahokee, but we didn't own the land, right? We had to lease the land, rent the land for whatever amount of time that we could, that the owner could let us have that land to do the thing that we want to do. So those kind of conversations to have with people who are directly impacted right now and what is happening. We may think we know about what's happening and we hear about what's happening, but the first step is to listen to them and bring them to the table. That's one. And number two, as others have said, there's rising costs, and we know this peripherally, right? We have seen it and we have heard about it. We know that there's a need for better infrastructure, the roads that we spoke about earlier. I think all of those are some of the things that are hurting people who are farming here in the Ag Reserve. Like I said, I've known people who were here and have left. And I also know people who are still here at the Ag Reserve who talk about some of the issues they have with me. But I would, as a council member, look closer at some of the leasing policies, look at how they get funded, and look at the making sure we maintain and protect the integrity of the farms here in the Ag Reserve, and protect those who are bringing foods to our tables, and trying to make sure that we actually purchase the food from the people who are making it here, instead of going out to Pennsylvania, going out to New Jersey, wherever it is we go out to get our foods.
Thank you. Mark, you'll answer this next question first. Tonight, I think you've seen, and a lot of you know this area, but you've seen it tonight in the questions, and that is that there are some things out here that we don't want to have out here or are worried about because they're located out here and actually affect us more than they do the rest of the county. There are a lot of things we don't get because we don't have a big population and don't have a lot of attention sometimes. So one of the issues right now, and we understand it's important to the economy because data is important for all of us, are data centers. And there is a proposal right now to locate a data center at what used to be the power plant up in Dickerson. There are proposals now on the table in the county council to deal with that, or come up with some policies to frame how these data centers are located and managed. How do you view data centers, and what should the county government do regarding their location, construction, and operation? Mark?
The county should be very careful and not add to the problems that data centers cause. I mean, data centers are definitely, in this state, but also in the entire PGM grid, they're a threat to the energy supply right now, because there is no way people can build energy fast enough to supply it for the data centers that want to go up. And ours is just one of multiple data centers that people want to put in this grid. So getting the energy supply is really, really, I think, critical. I think the water issue here can be dealt with. They can do this with little or no water if they want to. And that's one of the part of negotiating is knowing what's possible. So looking what other people have done, I met with the company that is going to be the occupant of the data center. So we are looking at what they have done in other places to know what it's totally possible for us to ask for, because you've done it there, you can do it here. Lack of water is one thing we can address. The energy supply is a big issue. They say they don't have room for battery backup. They're talking to us about diesel generators. I think diesel generators are an absolute no. It is hard to make them clean no matter what you do. We've talked to a company about fuel cells that might be an alternative, but we're looking for what's possible. And in talking to the company that wants to do this, my goal is to get an understanding of, what's their temperature and what are they willing to do. They had some very innovative solutions. We've talked about large-scale production of energy. One of the topics that came up is how many rooftops of residential solar could they build in order to provide some of the energy? How many people could they provide heat pumps to reduce the demand or use of energy? So they were looking at multiple ways to try to crack this nut, so there's a way to make this fit. I thought our conversation was productive. We left it saying we'll talk some more. So my goal is to make sure no harm to the environment, no harm to your electric bills, and just no harm to people.
Scott?
So yeah, I think the county executive's approach is the right one. I think there is a zoning text amendment that is working its way through the council right now, and I think after the budget is over, they'll be able to finalize that with a couple more amendments. But protecting people against utility rate increases, protecting the environment, keeping the resident population, which is you guys, aesthetically and with sound issues and safe from that is a priority. So some people tell me I tell dad jokes.
You tell you.
Since we're talking about data centers and we're talking about computer code, I think if we're speaking binary code, the number of data centers that's appropriate for Montgomery County is either 0 or 1. There were some groans. I appreciate that. Thank you. But I think that's how we should approach it, right? We have a limited amount of land. I don't think we should have sprawling data centers all over it. But in a time when budgets are pretty tight and we could make tens of millions, up to $50 million per year potentially from one of these things, that puts a lot of teachers in the classroom. That can help with a lot of rustic roads. That can solve a number of problems. That is, $3 million payments per year that we're kicking in to try and make White's Ferry work. government is about pros and cons and trying to find a net positive, and I think there is a net positive with this ZTA and some of these proposals.
Lorianne?
Yes, so as one of the co-sponsors and co-leads on this zoning text amendment, we wanted to get ahead of the data center. That's why I think it's so important to be involved and build partnerships. We attended the winter conference for the Maryland Association of Counties, and I remember us meeting in the hallway, and I told Mark, there's no way we can have this. We need to do a moratorium. He's like, no. We can do this in a better way. We can be thoughtful, and we can actually put in provisions to require them to only be in, outside of residential areas, and put them in certain areas within our county. We can also require them to bring their own energy, and whatever policies we can make them retroactive, so that regardless of when they come on board, that whatever policies that we put in place will ensure that we create the safest facility here in the county. Right now, it's a coal plant, and so cleaning that area up and ridding it of that, less than healthy product is a way forward, and the revenue that we are going to generate is going to be very helpful in ensuring that this part of our county and a lot of the outstanding issues that have been long ignored get the attention that they deserve. But I'm glad to be at the table and very responsive. I'm glad that we have been in partnership with the county executive's office, and hopefully that will continue under the new administration to ensure that we are leading the conversation and we are not beholden to anyone who comes in with a big shiny new idea.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Sometimes the idea of something is scarier than the actual existence of it when it gets put together. I bring that up because how many of you know that there is a small nuclear reactor at NIST in Gaithersburg? A few of you, right? But it's operated safely. But if you were to say now, do you want a new nuclear reactor anywhere here, how many people would be like, yeah, let's go? So there are things that we can learn, and you may not be wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. But the reason I bring this up is there are a lot of things that we can learn from Loudoun County, both good and bad, right? There are definitely things that are troublesome about it, and it's not just the energy use, which is a big issue. It's also the noise pollution. That is something that we've been hearing a lot from Loudoun County. But there are opportunities, like Scott said, there's millions of dollars in revenue at a time when we are challenged. Hundreds of construction jobs at a time when we need jobs. So there are some benefits that can come from it. And the thing is, when a data center is built anywhere in the region, in our 9 or 12 states, I think, 13 states that we generate our electricity from, if one of these is built anywhere in that region, it's going to affect our energy rates. So at least if it's built in Montgomery County, we get the benefit of that revenue, which we wouldn't get elsewhere. So I thought Councilmember Balcom did a really nice job when she had her town hall up at the Poolesville Firehouse to go over these issues and discuss those. It was a great opportunity to be there and listen to those. But and I think the county executive is right in that when you look at how we handle water, whether it's a closed loop system, ways to really protect the environment, make sure that we are augmenting the energy impact. I think there's a way to do it if we are intentional about the way that we do it.
Carla?
Yeah, I think we have to make sure that the benefits of data centers outweigh the costs. And if we have 4 small data centers here in Montgomery County, any additional data centers have to be on our own terms, and I appreciate the council members' zoning text amendment to make sure that any new provisions are going to exist for current and any past data centers that are in Montgomery County. As has been, I do want to emphasize the issue of the energy consumption. It is a regional issue. Whether we build data centers in Montgomery County or not, we're still paying higher energy costs because other surrounding communities have bought into data centers. So we have to work with our surrounding jurisdictions, with the Council of Governments, to get all the counties in this region on the same page, to put in the same protections, the same measures in terms of 100% renewable energy. Otherwise, our electricity costs are still going to be high, and we're not benefiting from the benefits of the revenues that data centers bring in. So, we need to take care of, make sure that we have strict guidelines for whatever we allow going forward, but also step back and take more of a regional approach so that we don't continue to be burdened by the high energy costs that data centers in other counties are bringing to us. Thank you.
Amana?
Yeah, so I believe, honestly, that we have to wait. We need to wait. We already have evidence from the fact that the places that have it close to us have impacted our energy rates already. So envision that being here. What do? So we wait. I think there's nothing wrong with having a moratorium that says for the next however many years, let's study it. Let's see what it's doing in these other places and how it's impacting them environmentally, the noise, the use of energy, the use of water. All those things are real. And pretending as if it's not, I think it's a big mistake. We are constantly talking about how our environment is being impacted by what we are doing as human beings. But then if we consciously make a decision, so then impact it, knowing what it will do, it's on us. We can't then sit around and complain about it. We have seen some evidence of it. Let's study it and make sure that it will benefit Montgomery County and the people who live here, whether it's economically or environmentally. We have enough health concerns in this county. We have enough issues with our children having other unexplained things happening to them. We cannot then consciously bring things into the county that we know could potentially harm them. We can bring revenue to this county. I think we can think outside the box without harming our children and ourselves. So I say we have a moratorium and we wait and we study it and we see what happens when other people have had it for a little bit and see what the direct impact is on the people who live here, or there, rather.
Steve?
We talked a little bit about this with the Ag Reserve and the beauty that Up County is because of that. I worked in Sterling, Virginia for a little while, and it is a sea of data. I think half the internet traffic in the world goes through Sterling, Virginia. And I don't think we want to look like that, but at the same time, this is 2026. We have to keep up with technological advances. This is a tech world. You can watch this very forum anywhere in the world right now with the magic of the internet. So we have to keep up with things like that. And when people ask me, what's your main priority while you're running? It's to grow our economy so we can keep paying for the amazing services and resources we have in this county. And with that comes thoughtful things like how to do data centers. And obviously there's environmental and energy impacts that come with that, but it will make us more money, and we can pay, as Scott said, for $3 million payments to, or anything like that, more teachers, more library resources, everything that we need more money for, services to people who are struggling in this county with a variety of things. So there's that. It doesn't bring in jobs. That's the thing. You'll go to one of these data centers and it'll be a big empty room of servers, right? I imagine that's what it'll be. A few people, yes, but it's not like many other businesses that we want to bring into this county. And the very thing we want to have people in this county for, where we can have pipelines from MCPS to jobs that are created in this county, so businesses will want to come here. It's all a full circle of things. So that's not really the path that the data center project will take, but certainly if it's done in a safe environmental and energy way, I am for it because of the benefits it can do in other ways.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Link. I just wanted to share a caveat because there may be a misunderstanding that we were not thoughtful with the zoning text amendment that we introduced. We are doing a study simultaneously. That's why we are not rushing to make this legislation. We are taking our time. We have the budget, a very difficult budget to get through, but the Office of Legislative Oversight has been tasked with doing a nationwide study to see what best practices we can also add to this zoning text amendment before it goes out to, for a vote. So just wanted to share, and that should be available in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, you'll be answering this question next first. Steve, you said that you can be a transit guy or a car guy, but out here you really can't be a transit guy. The public transportation doesn't work very well. We have a bus comes out to Poolesville and doesn't really do much in the west of the Western County at all, doesn't go out there. We have two organizations here tonight, led by two very capable people, WMCO, which represents our folks in need, and Poolesville Seniors, and both of them need better public transportation to help the people they're trying to help. So how do we improve public transportation in the Western County? What can we do to make it better and actually serve people that need to get to doctors, for example, and seniors who can't get to programs because we don't have them out here? So, Scott, you're first.
So I think regular, reliable bus service, ride-on, is one of the answers. I also think, we're starting the Flex Bus, and I think that's going to bear fruit. And I think figuring out where that goes and then expanding that is a good idea. But just geographically, there's going to be limits out here. And I think thinking creatively and figuring out what those limits are, but also maximizing providing service. I get yelled at a lot, too, when I use acronyms, Link. So WMCO, Western Upper Montgomery County Help Incorporated.
People here knew that, and I thought all of you did too, because you all care about this area.
Forgive me for telling you something you already know.
Yes, you're right.
As
you're
a
right.
substitute teacher, I find repetition to be very helpful. But, roads, trails, any public transportation we can do. Again, this is figuring out what the priorities of the area are, and then you guys advocating for it, and then trying to figure out what we can do based on our finite amount of resources. That's how I would approach it.
Oriane?
Yeah, I think in addition to, having reliable transportation for our seniors, we need to make sure that our workers who commute here have access to reliable transportation, and it's not very convenient when you have a bus in the morning and a bus in the evening. So I'm so grateful for the Agricultural Advisory Board convening stakeholders to talk about the issues, and invited our Department of Transportation to the meeting to talk about the Flex Bus and making sure that we have on-demand options. We're subsidizing a circulator in Bethesda. There's no reason why we cannot subsidize transportation in the agricultural reserve. It's a part of our county we value, and if we want to ensure that residents can get around our community better, and can, patron our businesses, we need to support that, just as we do in other parts of the county. There's a way to get it done if we want to get it done, and we just need the will to ensure that we treat each corner of this county as equitably as we do for other parts of our county. Is there a cost? Yes, but the benefit can be felt. And so we have workers, we have businesses that need patrons, and we have a transportation system that we need to ensure is equitably servicing all parts of our community.
I think there's two parts to this particular issue. One is the actual transit aspect and making sure that we're connecting people with where they want to go. But then it's also making sure that, we have those things that people need nearby, and it's the whole idea of what fair access is all about. Making, we just had the announcement that the Germantown Adventist Health Clinic is going to be closing, and what does that do to people needing to get to healthcare by bus? They're going to have to now go to Shady Grove if they need emergency care. So that's a big question that's out before us. It's the lack of a large grocery store here in Poolesville, and needing to be able to have access to food. And I drive past the Harris Teeter all the time. I know a lot of my friends here go there, but are we having frequent enough transit to be able to get to those places? We need to be looking holistically at our entire county and making sure that where our transit is going is where people need to be. The reason we spend so much time commuting to and fro is because our jobs aren't where we live, and we can't afford to live where our jobs are, and all the different places, they're not connecting us. So I think we need to really be thoughtful, not just, thinking about feeding the DC beast, as I like to call it, that hub and spoke system, and really looking at, economic nodes around the county and opportunity nodes, and making sure that we're connecting them so we can get from Poolesville to Clarksburg, Poolesville to Germantown, or maybe even to Olney, because that's where people need to go. So I think we need to really do a deep dive into, what makes the most sense in the 21st century transit system, and then make sure we're providing this, the resources that match those needs, not what we think that they are.
Carla?
Yeah, as I shared, I grew up in a community of 10,000 residents in rural Florida with one traffic light, and our library was in a mobile home. So I can relate to what it's like to be a low-income resident in a community without transportation. And I think the solution is twofold. One, bring more services to Poolesville. So if health services are needed, then bring mobile units that can come on a regular basis to provide the services to the community that needs it. And two, make sure that the bus transportation is more regular and it makes sense for the users. I think maybe we think everyone's going to the metro, but no, frankly, they probably need to get to Germantown and the transfer center there. They need to get to Shady Grove Road, where all the doctor's offices are and the specialists. So two-prong approach. I think Poolesville suffers from the same problem that Montgomery County suffers in the state, that everybody thinks that Montgomery County is wealthy. No, there's pockets of poverty in Montgomery County. People might think, people don't need bus transportation in Poolesville. No, there's people here that don't own cars and don't have a way to get anywhere. So again, I think as someone that has lived this experience as a teenager growing up, I think that the solution is twofold. Bring more services to Poolesville and make sure that the transportation that we are providing is more regular and it's actually working for the people that are using it. Thank you.
Yes, so as I said earlier, I am a proponent of equity. Poolesville is in Montgomery County. It should not be a debate or question. It does not matter where the location is. It's the county's responsibility to ensure that you receive transportation services, regularly scheduled, dedicated transportation that comes out to Poolesville and goes where people need to go. And I agree, resources should be here. Like I said, when I was a child, I lived in a village where we had to walk miles just to go to the hospital. You wasn't there. And obviously, where I lived, nobody had a car. The entire village, not a single person had a car. So wherever you had to go, it had to be by foot. And all the roads were just like what you see here, what we call rustic here, right? Over there, it was just a road, right? It was just what it was, and you walked it. To wherever it is you need to go, you walked it. You walked it to the farm. You walked it to my grandfather's cow farm, where we milk the cows and bring it over and do the soy milk. We did everything, the sour milk. We did everything on our rustic road. But we need services where people live. It's that basic. If you're a small town, give a small clinic. If you're a small town, give us a smaller whatever that fits the community. It doesn't mean you don't receive it because you're not as large as other areas, or you're not as close to whatever it is they say is important. You live here, you pay your taxes here, and I am a proponent of ensuring that the services that you need are provided and they're accessible, easily accessible, not stressful. I know it will take a lot and it will be hard, but we can do it.
Steve?
So I think it was Lorianne who mentioned the circulator in Bethesda. That's one of the great things we have, and I'd love to see more of those in this county. I lived in Bethesda for a few years. I lived in affordable housing in the Fields apartments because I was making under the minimum amount to live there, and the circulator was great. I'd take it all sorts of places, and I'd take the metro when I worked downtown sometimes as well. Transportation's an issue for all of us. Transportation was the reason I quit my job. My radio station was bought. We moved from downtown Silver Spring to southeast DC next to Nats Park. And I'm like, I'm not going there every day, so I quit. Perhaps a terrible idea, but it's what I did. A lot of problems are first mile and last mile to people, the reliability of services as well. And I think we don't do a great job right now of building things that connect things. We have bike lanes or bus lanes that aren't connecting things well enough. I know that's the plan to do so as well. We have our bus lanes on University Boulevard where I live, and I think a lot of people see that that's taking up an entire lane and traffic is more congested. Maybe we could switch that to how Georgia Avenue does it, where they're timed bus lanes rather than 24 hours a day. So there's slight changes I think we can do, and certainly more reliable transportation for people out here to Poolesville is a barrier to a lot of people's way of life, and certainly a priority for me and I think a lot of people up here. So,
Mark?
So there's a bus in my budget for this purpose. And, but I want to say that, I think everybody's got to think about this. If you penciled this bus route out and said, is this cost effective? The answer is no. So ask yourselves, how many other things in the budget aren't cost effective? They affect communities that need things. They provide services to people that need things. They cost real money. I don't walk away from everything because I say, well, these people, it's just not cost effective, so you shouldn't have it. And that's the challenge of governing. You have to do some things that if it was only an economic calculation, you wouldn't make that calculation. If it's, what do I do to make a community better, you make those calculations. So this is here. The mobile medical thing is here. The clinic's going to be in a building. We're putting them here not because these were cost-effective decisions, but because they're the right thing to do. And I just ask people as we think about the rest of the county, you can't just blithely say, well, we're just going to get more efficient and cut things. Because if I get more efficient and cut things, how does this stack up to something that would get cut? And that's the dilemma. With this, there is no simple way out of where we are now. We're a very diverse county. We serve a lot of different people with a lot of different needs. As a county council member and as a county executive, I've always tried to serve everybody, not saying, well, it's too expensive to come here, but like these people need it here. And that's why I'm running, for council again. I want to be able to be the voice that says we need to do these things, not because they're cost effective, because they're the right thing to do.
Thank you. So this will be the last question, and then because it's already 8:06 or 8:07, we're getting late. I think in the closing remarks, we'll just do a minute. You've already had an opening remark, so a minute to close. But this question will still be 2 minutes. And this is the only one tonight that's not on Western County. As you noticed, everything I asked was about the Western County, and that's why, because of Fair Access Committee and because the town's been struggling on a lot of these issues. But there is an overarching issue for all of us, and that's, we know it, because it's a battle every day we see in the council, and I know the county executive's budget was part of that process too, taxes and spending. We got each of you for 2 minutes. What would you do on the tax issues and on the spending issues for Montgomery County? And the first person to answer would be Lorianne.
Well, balancing the budget's not an easy job, but that's not why you take this job, because you want an easy job. You got to make hard decisions, and you hire people to make thoughtful decisions about where to streamline things, when to stop hiring, when to, cut certain positions that haven't been filled from the budget, and figure out how to streamline services. We're asking our residents to do more with less, so we have to be reflective and ensure that we are spending taxpayer dollars a bit more responsibly. We have our school system that we have to fund. Our kids are struggling, and we need to keep the best teachers in the classroom. So teacher contracts, we are funding almost the bare minimum of, their wage adjustments. We also have public safety. I've spoken with our fire department, our police department, our police chief is saying, well, we don't need to replace the AEDs this month. So department by department, line by line, we need to look at everything we're spending money on, every program that's not benefiting us, and make sure that we are being very selective with what we are continuing to fund and what we're turning a blind eye to.
Thank you for the question. Honestly, it's one of the biggest things that, I'm hearing at the doors in the community is, the idea of budgets and taxes and all of that. In the city of Gaithersburg, coming into our budget season that we're undertaking right now, we had met with our city manager months ago, and we knew that there were economic headwinds coming in with the DOGE cuts and, so many of our federal employees losing their jobs, and just the impact that that's having the economy, and knowing that we had this challenge coming at us. And, we asked staff to kind of come back to us with a plan as far as kind of a small, medium, and large, so that, as we figured out how things were settling, what we knew we could do. And I think that comes back to the philosophy of how you build a budget. And, it's for us in Gaithersburg, we're a pay-as-you-go city. We have the lowest municipal tax rate of any large city in Maryland, and we have zero debt, but we continue to offer great services. And it's because we've been thoughtful about how we plan. And for me, when I approach a budget, it's not, here's all the things that we need to do and what's that price tag. It's what do we have to work with, and then what can we do with it, and then making those tough decisions. And I think, the attitude of this is the way that we've always done it is a very dangerous idea for any organization. And I think in difficult times, when knowing that, people are being pinched, coming back with such a large property tax and an income tax increase is not going to benefit the people of Montgomery County. The state bent over backwards to make sure that they did not raise taxes, and we didn't see that approach here. So, for me, I think we really need to look at MCPS and their budget and making sure that we are requesting more transparency so we can see how they're spending them. There's so much more to say on this, but talk to me afterwards.
Marla?
Yeah, likewise, when I talk to residents, they often talk about the high cost of living right now. So food prices, gas prices, housing prices, and then on top of that, actual tax assessments, because the cost of housing goes up, so does the price of our tax assessment and home assessments, and that is another tax. And so, at the same time, the costs are real. As a school board member, the utilities alone for MCPS are $50 million and rising. So just like your household costs are going up, the county's government's costs are going up. So the costs are real. So as elected leaders, we have to be straightforward with, yes, there's a place to raise taxes. Now is not the time because, as I said, our residents are really getting hurt with the high costs of everything in this county. So many people are laid off and have not found a job yet after 3, 6, 9, a year, 12 months later after they've been laid off. And so I think that as a school board member, we always have to focus on the things that we have to fund and the things that we would like to fund, and start out with the things that we have to fund, because oftentimes we can't do it all. I think that there's an opportunity to slow down on our spending to bring the budget into balance. And finally, let's look at what we took on during the pandemic that maybe we can't continue to fund. Again, there's critical services that we must continue to fund, but we have to be fiscally responsible and disciplined and realistic about what we can fund going forward. Thank you.
Armana?
Yes. Okay, so I look at this in several ways. We have a county, or we have a state, we have a country right now where everyone is suffering and everyone is having a hard time. I live in a community where I live in a townhouse right down the street. You have people who are living in apartment buildings that they cannot afford, even though the apartments are unhealthy, they have mold, you name it, it's in there. They cannot afford it. They're making shift money, right? Hourly wages that is bringing them $600 a week, and they're paying an apartment of $1,500 a month. That is real, and it's happening right now in Montgomery County. Even though we're one of the richest counties, you have these issues right now. So I look at it in this way. We take care of the things that are necessary, the health, our children's education. As I said, I'm a special education attorney and advocate, and I know that special education resources have been cut at the federal level. The department has been shuttered, which means that our children here will not be receiving all the services they need. We need to make sure that's funded. We need to make sure that transportation services are available for people who live in this county. And we need to ensure that we have public safety that is paramount, because we have to stay safe, right? And there are a myriad of ways we can do that. So we have to make sure those are funded. I think we have to think outside of the box. When we look at budgets, the regular way of doing business cannot always be the way we do it. We have to do more of a, I believe, line item review of the fundings, look at what we're funding and how and what we are getting as a county in response to those fundings. And I think it takes time, it takes effort. I've worked at the county council I've been a staff member who had to go through those, that stuff, and look at the face. And it is tough, but we can do it.
Dave?
So our budget has increased, the operating budget, about $2 billion over the last 5 years, from 6 to near 8 this coming one. And I'm sure Mark and the council are determined to not cut vital services to people, and none of us want to see that done. So the only alternatives are more money in taxes or bringing in more revenue to the county somehow. And that's really what I want to focus on is how can we do that? Because I've heard it from a lot of small businesses, large businesses. I go business to business and ask these people what is hindering you in the county from growing. And to me, there's some simple things that can be done with permitting, with vacancies in budgets that have been cut to save a little bit here or there. So it's possible to do. And then there's ways to bring in businesses otherwise. I have a stupid idea of I saw that none of our high schools have our graduations here. Why don't we have a cool facility like a Dulles Expo Center or something like that, where we could have a place where Montgomery County is. We have no sports professional team here, but I'd love to see something. We have the small conference center in North Bethesda. That's nice, but we have nothing that can be built around like that. So that's something I'd love to see pioneer. We have a sports tourism task force that our sports advisory committee has worked with as well, that I'd love to see done. It's not easy. It's complicated. It'll take forever. But I'd love to start something like that to plant the seed of growing our economy so that we can have the money to maintain maintain this incredible county. We were the county that people looked at as the bastion of where you go to live because of the schools and all these services. And I want to maintain that. That's why I'm running, to keep this county as great as it is. And to do that, we have to grow economically.
Mark?
So this was a really difficult budget, but, people need to be specific about what they're going to cut. You just can't say, yes, you sort of cut this stuff. So I don't know even where to begin on this. Look, the schools came out, record request for funding, almost all of its salaries. So I could solve half my problem by not honoring the union contract. That's that, and I can not honor the police and fire contract, and I've almost solved my entire problem. The governor, yes, he did a lot of cuts at the state level. He also sent us $30 million in pension payments that we didn't used to have. So this year we're paying $30 million we didn't used to have. And that little ice storm took $45 million out of my reserves. It's almost 2 cents on the tax rate that without the ice storm, we wouldn't have needed that money because that money would have been in the reserves. So there's a host of things that we have to deal with that are real. And people need to start, if you're going to talk about what you want to cut or what you could save, tell us what not to do. Because I can't find things. When I added things to this budget, I took out $20 million of a program. I told people, give me things that don't hurt anybody. I literally said that. They took out $20 million, or they're going to say there's not going to be any human impact on this. I added about $60 million. Because the health clinic said we're going to get about 6,000 more Montgomery County residents who are losing health care. And our clinics are the first line of health care. So that money's in there. We're going to see more homelessness than we've had before because the eviction pace is picking up. I gave them money to be able to house people so that this doesn't spill over onto the streets of Montgomery County. These are real things we have to do. I'm going to save my 2 minutes to talk about a solution to how I want to approach this in the big picture, because there is a way to deal with revenues, and it doesn't mean it's coming out of your pocket, and I'll tell you how.
Scott?
As a substitute teacher, democracy is kind of in peril right now. We see what happened is in D.C., and it's a mess. And I think the process that we're going through with our budget right now is incredibly healthy. Right? A lot of people are disagreeing, but people are putting their proposals on the table and arguing for it and trying to come up with solutions. And in the next 30 days, the county council and the executive will come up with a solution and they'll pass a budget. If elected by you, if honored to serve as your county council member, we would start in December of 2026, right? So I want to change this pattern of entering into a budget cycle where our expenses are exceeding our revenues, and to make those match, if we don't want to cut anything or cut anything significantly, we have to make more revenue. So as I mentioned, I started a small business and grew it into something fairly sizable with 20 employees. I think I can take that to the council and say, let's figure out how we can increase our revenues by growing our tax base instead of asking the same amount of people to pay more, and looking in an intelligent, thoughtful, inclusive manner on all of our expenses and services, and finding where we can trim a little bit, right? We're not trying to cut huge percentages. Basically, we're telling people, you had $100 last year, we're going to give you $102 this year, and we want to give you 104, and to get to 104, we have to increase all these taxes, right? There is a middle ground, there's compromise, there's reasonable people. I think we're going to figure it out this year, but in the next 4 years, I want to be the guy who says we're going to increase revenue by having a wider tax base, and we're going to look at some of these expenses and see what makes sense and what we can trim a little bit.
We come to time for closing remarks, but I would like you, as you think about this, and Mark touched on it, your answers, almost nobody really talked about the yes or no question, and maybe there isn't a yes or no, but on taxes in particular, people are concerned about that. Are we going to have to raise taxes or not? Assessments are already going up. So if you could talk about that in your comments, and you talked about it a little bit, Scott, because of economic growth, but I think it's only fair. People haven't heard an answer really on that issue. So the person that starts off here for the closing remarks will be Jim McNulty. Let's give him 2 minutes. Let's give him 2. Yeah. I think people are still here, and that, I want to hear a fulsome answer if we can get it.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for taking your time on a beautiful evening to learn about your candidates. I mean, there are 17 of us running for Montgomery County Council at large, and, you know, this is an important time. I mean, our county is at a crossroads, right? We are at a place at the national level, but at the county level, where people really are looking for change. I'm hearing it every day. And we have a rare opportunity here in Montgomery County. There are 5 open council seats, including 3 at large. So we really do have a generational opportunity to change the direction of our county for the better and elect leaders who understand that we should be growing our economy so we aren't having to continually raise taxes. Taking away the policies that are getting in the way of building new housing, that are getting in the way of attracting new employers. That's what's been happening. We need to get individuals who have the leadership, the experience, and the willingness to roll up their sleeves and to do the work of building relationships and getting to a place where our government is a partner. We want to be able to look across the river, not with envy, but to recognize that we have done our job and we are competing with them every single day. When it comes to taxes, it's obviously a difficult situation, but I would have looked at Montgomery County Public Schools and say we can't go above the MOE, the minimum effort of a minimum level of effort, because each year that continues to increase the floor every single year, and it becomes unsustainable. So that's number one. We need to be triaging the expenses, and I think Carla said it best, looking at what we must be doing right now versus what we would like to be doing.
Carla.
I think I answered your question, Link. I said costs are real, but because of our residents are telling me no jobs, dealing with food insecurity because of the high cost of housing and foods and everything, now is not the time to raise taxes. I said that. I said people are telling me their home assessments are through the roof, and then that's another tax that people are hurting. So I want to thank you, my closing remarks. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. I think what we've heard tonight is clear. The residents of Western Montgomery County want a county council that understands the unique needs of this community, that is going to address the needs, that understands them, and is going to make sure that we are responsive with the basic services that you have talked about here, supporting our farmers, protecting our ag-reserve, making sure that we have good transportation options, making sure that services are available for seniors and the most vulnerable. I'm running because I have been on the school board. I have managed the largest public budget in this county. If you want someone that is going to understand the overall $8 billion budget for the county, you need someone that understands the school systems budget, because it's a large percentage of that budget. I think that I humbly ask for your vote. If you want a council member that is experienced in managing budgets, making things work in a large system, vote for me. If you want a council member that's pragmatic and is going to listen to the needs of this community, vote for me. And finally, a council member that's going to focus on the quality of life issues that you care about: jobs, schools, roads, transportation. I humbly ask for your vote. Remember, you have 4. Make Carla Silvestre one of them.
Edmana.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for staying the whole time and being here to listen to us. My name is Fatma Tabari, as I said earlier, and I'm here asking for your vote. Asking for you to put me on the county council to have the opportunity to uplift this community and uplift your voices and make sure that the issues that you care about are paramount. As anybody else who lives in this county, that needs to be a reality. You shouldn't have to continuously fight for something that you should rightfully have. And I want to be that person on the county council that brings that up and allows you to speak up for yourself. I am a 24-year resident of Montgomery County. I came here right after law school, and I've been here ever since. I have spent the last over 20 years representing children with special needs and the immigrant community, helping them navigate complex systems that are here. And I live in a community where people are, you have the middle class, and then right around the corner, not so middle class. And the middle class that we did have, many of them are no longer middle class, because now we have a system that has fired people for no reason other than they wanted to inflict pain. And now we have communities that are living and cannot afford where they're living, but what choices do they have? Where are they going to go? So for me, I believe in, if we are going to tax people, we need to do this progressive taxing. We need to do taxes where you tax those who can afford it the most to protect those who don't have it. And that is just a natural occurrence, right? Government is here to protect everyone and to have a voice for those who otherwise cannot have a voice for themselves. And that's what I've spent time doing my entire life. And I want to do that on the county council. I have worked on the county council. I've worked on the other side, and I can tell you I have the lens of both sides of the street. And I can represent you properly. And I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
All right, I'm Steve Solomon, as you so remember that, hopefully. Humbly asking for your vote as well. If you'd like a lawn sign, I got about 20 in my car. Happy to give anyone here a lawn sign. Please take that. I got a bunch of them. So I some of the things I do in the county, I've been proud to serve on our library board. I volunteer for a dog rescue. I volunteer for a food pantry every week. I serve on the board of directors for our Sports Hall of Fame. We had our ceremony last night. Mark spoke and attended, as he's attended every year, I believe. It's an amazing ceremony. We learn all about these athletes who may not be world-renowned. Some are world-renowned. We have, Katie Ledecky and Walter Johnson. But we had stories last night, and there was one story. Betty Holston Smith was one of our honorees. She's in her 80s. She ran 81 miles on her 81st birthday. She's run like 150,000 miles. We also honored Warren Crutchfield, who's a famous coach and mentor and teacher in this county. Betty's high school classmate was taught by Warren, so they met each other after 70 years yesterday for the first time. Like, oh my God, that's Betty. So the stories in this county and the people are incredible, and I'd love to serve on the council to lift those voices and do better for those people. Some of my priorities that we haven't mentioned, I'm very much a supporter of our libraries, rec centers, and parks. I grew up going to those places in the last 48 years, and so happy to try to fund those as much as possible. They're very important they're a small part of our budget, but they need fully funding. Our seniors, we need more programs, more housing, more transportation for them as well. So that's very important to me as I've watched my grandparents and then parents age in this county. And I ask you to go to votestevesolomon.com if you want to learn even more about me, you can do that. And thank you for your time tonight.
Mark?
So good to see everybody again, and I hope you remember me on Election Day. But I did want to talk about something I think is really important. I looked across the river at what Virginia was doing. A lot of people say look across the river and look at what they got. Nobody tells you how they got there, so I'm going to tell you how they got there. After the recession, Virginia does the Tyson's Plan. Everybody knows that they have great potential, but they can't fund the infrastructure. And the developers and the council in Virginia, Fairfax, go to the Republican legislature with the Republican governor and ask them to create special taxing districts to build the infrastructure in Northern Virginia. These are Northern Virginia's taxes. You pay, right now, $1.03. If you were in Fairfax County, you'd be paying $1.15. Commercial property would be paying $1.27. But if commercial property is in Tyson's or in Reston, they're paying $1.50. In Montgomery County, they're paying $1.03. No one's going to Virginia because of the taxes. They're going to Virginia because Virginia got smart and built infrastructure. Washington, D.C., my favorite poster child, 85-cent residential tax. Commercial taxes. $1.66 on property worth $2 to $5 million, commercial property, $1.77 on commercial property worth $5 to $10 million, and $1.89 on property worth $10 million. That's what the people around you are doing who are eating your lunch. They are taxing the private sector. They're taking that money. It can't be used for food, it can't be used for education. It could only be used to build infrastructure. Because over there, they were smart enough to realize if we build the infrastructure, we can attract the businesses we want to come here. We have not done that. And for your surrounding jurisdictions, for more comfort, Frederick's taxes are $1.11, Howard County's taxes are $1.34, Prince George's County's taxes are about $1.36. We are a low-tax district, and we're not able to achieve what the high-tax districts do because they rely on the commercial sector, not on their residents. Thank you.
Thanks. Scott?
We are so serious about economic development. I'm going to give you the bullet points so we can go to the one bar that's open past 9 o'clock, which is House of Poolesville. I am a dad. I've got 2 kids in MCPS. I am a husband. My wife and I will be married 18 years this July. We were born in the same hospital in New Jersey and didn't meet till we were sophomores at the University of Maryland. Totally adorable. I'm a small business owner with a laptop and an idea. I started a company that now employs 20 people. I am, say it with me, a substitute teacher. And during that, I went to law school at night and represent underdogs in the classroom. I think we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. I think we need to fix our revenue problem. I don't think right now is the time to increase our property tax, income tax, water quality protection charge, and solid waste charge all at the same time. If for no other reason that one day we will be in a recession and budgets will be even harder and we're giving ourselves no room to raise revenues when we really, really need to. At-large members on the county council, sometimes, present company definitely excluded, get the reputation as only coming up county when they need votes. My view is that this is an enjoyable part of the county. Yes, it's called the up county, but when people say, are you going up there? I tell them, no, I'm just going there. It is part of our big, beautiful county, and we are all in this together. On June 23rd, you have 17 names to choose from in the at-large race. You get up to 4 votes. I'm asking that you cast one of them for Scott Goldberg. Over 200,000 people, 200,000 registered Democrats aren't going to bother to vote at all in our primary. So I thank you guys for voting from the bottom of my heart. But I also want to show my appreciation that not only are you voting, but you are taking the time out of your busy day to come here and learn more about our vibrant democracy. Thank you.
Orianne?
Thank you. So as the lone incumbent in this race, this very crowded race, I am signing up. I'm re-enlisting, and I hope I'll have your support. It has been a very interesting, exciting, eventful last 4 years, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. We're going to have a lot of changes, a lot of folks that need to be acclimated to the role, and a lot of folks that need to be brought up to speed on a lot of the issues that are impacting this entire county and specifically this region. This is going to be a difficult job to grasp on day one, and so I'm hoping to have your support because experience matters. I'm not supportive of raising taxes. I remember back in my MPA program, one of my favorite classes was, the budget, and getting a good handle on the budget is a big part of this job, trying to manage this massive budget. And so being an elected official also comes with the challenges and drawbacks of making difficult decisions, and then impressing that upon the leaders that you have put in charge of these big departments. And so we're going to have a tough next few weeks, but I plan on continuing to build upon the SMART agenda that I ran on, and want to continue bringing smart solutions to our community to have a sustainable middle class and ensure that we continue to produce the results that are befitting of a 21st century economy. So on June 23rd, I hope I'll have your support. Thank you.
Two quick comments in closing. First, we have an embarrassment of riches on the at-large races. We have 17 people running, so we're having a second forum on May 27th, and we're going to invite as many of those people who haven't been here tonight to be here for another forum. So please come out for that too. And I wanted to have all of you see how many people from Poolesville and the Western County area come
Thank
on a
you.
night tonight like this and spend 2 hours. I really thank them for doing that. And the second thing is the Board of Education, Carla mentioned it, very important. There's an at-large race that has 4 people running. And we're going to have an at-large forum on May 11th. Ed Reed, a commissioner, but also an MCPS leader, will be doing the emceeing of that event. So please come to that as well. It's important to learn about the Board of Education. So thank you, candidates, for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Poolesville Chamber. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You guys can do this down for one picture. You can actually just stay there and tighten it up a little bit.
Come on, sir. Let's move on down.
Yeah, let me see. Drinking coffee at 6 o'clock was an absolute mistake.